every soul. Family ties, tangle, spaghetti in a maze. Growing up in this world of non-stop craze. Through Wonderland's gates we unlock the scene. Heartfelt confessions mixed with caffeine. Identity a mirror, emotions on the grind. Relationships weave webs tangled in the mind. Dad had a dad joke, mom had a battle cry. Bro screaming GTA, sister waving goodbye. Chaos at the dinner table, feelings hit the wall. Trying to grow tall, but the ceiling's way too small. Through Wonderland's gates we unlock the scene. Heartfelt confessions mixed with caffeine. Identity a mirror, emotions on the grind. Relationships weave webs tangled in the mind.
Welcome back to Wonderland Unlocked, the podcast where we unravel the curious, the chaotic, and the downright bizarre through the lens of Alice in Wonderland. I'm Courtney, your host on this topsy-turvy adventure, and today we're diving into a topic that's as unpredictable as Wonderland itself: family gatherings. If you've ever attended a family dinner that felt like an elaborate social experiment where the rules change mid-sentence, where one wrong comment can send the entire room into chaos, and where traditions seem both sacred and completely nonsensical, then you, my friend, have attended your very own version of the Mad Hatter's Tea Party. The Mad Hatter's Tea Party is more than just a peculiar gathering of Wonderland's most eccentric characters. It's a reflection of the subtle, and not so subtle, power dynamics, unspoken rules, and the delicate balancing act that happens at every family table. So pour yourself a cup of tea. Just be careful, the cup might already belong to someone else, and let's unravel the chaos together. Let's begin with the big question. Why do family gatherings sometimes feel like organized chaos? What is it about sitting down to eat with loved ones that can bring out both the best and the most absurd in people? At the Mad Hatter's Tea Party, nothing stays in order. The guests move seats constantly. The conversation goes in circles. The tea is poured, but no one ever actually drinks it. Rules exist, but only so they can be broken. And yet, somehow, the party continues. Sound familiar? Family gatherings often operate in an unspoken set of social rules. Some of them are universal, like knowing which topics to avoid or which relative will inevitably take over the conversation. Others are specific to each family, like the exact way the mashed potatoes should be served, or who always gets the first slice of cake. These traditions, these quirks, are what make each family unique. But they're also the reason why things can go from delightful to disastrous in the blink of an eye. Think about it. Why does one person always seem to be in charge of setting the table? Why does another disappear just in time to avoid helping with the dishes? And why, no matter how much food is prepared, does there always seem to be an argument about whether there's enough? It's not just about the food. It's about power, history, and unspoken expectations. For instance, consider the delicate dance of seating arrangements. You might think it's random, but if you pay close attention, you'll see the invisible forces at play. The eldest members of the family often sit in the most important spots, whether at the head of the table or the closest to the food. The kids get shuffled off to their own little world, and then there's that one empty chair that no one sits in because it belongs to someone who isn't even in the room yet. And let's not forget the conversational landmines. Some topics are completely off limits, yet someone always manages to tiptoe right up to the edge of disaster before a well-timed subject changed, like a desperate game of verbal dodgeball. You can see it happening in real time. Someone brings up a new job or promotion. Safe topic. Everyone nods and smiles. A lighthearted childhood memory. Great, now we're reminiscing. A vague political comment. Oh no, shifting in seats, glances exchanged. And then, out of nowhere, BAM! Someone asks, so when are you getting married? Or what do you think about the election? And suddenly, the entire table is on high alert. It's a delicate balance, this unspoken choreography of family interaction. And yet, despite the occasional chaos, the awkward silences, the too loud laughter, and the inevitable debates over who makes the best stuffing, we keep coming back. Why? Because, like the Mad Hatter's Tea Party, there is something oddly comforting about the madness. There is something reassuring in the familiarity of it all. the same way Alice finds herself confused and frustrated by Wonderland, but somehow still intrigued. We navigate these gatherings with a mix of amusement and bewilderment. So as we take our seats at the proverbial tea table, let's embrace the chaos, shall we? Because much like Wonderland, family gatherings don't always make sense, but that doesn't mean that they aren't worth the adventure. Every family has its characters, and just like Wonderland, every gathering is full of distinct personalities that shape the experience. Some of them take center stage, commanding attention with grand storytelling or impassioned opinions. Others remain in the background, observing the chaos with quiet amusement, or in some cases barely concealed horror. Let's meet the cast of our family tea party, shall we? The Mad Hatter, the eccentric host. This person sets the tone for the entire gathering. They tell stories, ask strange questions, and occasionally forget what they were saying mid-sentence. They might be the family elder, the talkative uncle, or the overly enthusiastic cousin who insists on leading the dinner toast. The Mad Hatter thrives on energy, whether it's laughter, lively debate, or spontaneous toasts to no one in particular. The problem? Their enthusiasm sometimes veers into chaos. They might serve a dish no one actually wants, announce an impromptu family talent show, or decide that now is the perfect time to reminisce about a wildly inappropriate childhood story. But love them or roll your eyes at them, they keep the gathering alive. The March Hare, the instigator. This relative thrives on unpredictability. They bring up controversial topics at the worst possible moment. They challenge traditions just for the fun of it, and they might be the first to turn an innocent comment into a full-blown debate. The March Hare doesn't just start fires, they enjoy watching them burn. They might casually drop, "So who's voting for who this year?" right as people are taking their first bite of pie. They might nudge a long-standing sibling rivalry just to see what happens. They live for the reaction, for the dramatic gasps, for the moments when the entire table collectively inhale in anticipation of impending disaster. And yet, there's something oddly necessary about them. They keep things interesting. Without the March Hare, things might actually feel too normal. The Dormouse, the silent observer. Every family has at least one person who stays quiet and watches the chaos unfold. Whether they're pretending to be asleep like the actual dormouse, or just strategically avoiding conflict, they're the ones who make it through the dinner with minimal damage. You'll find them strategically placing themselves between two neutral parties, nodding at conversations without actually engaging, or quietly excusing themselves to check on something in the kitchen, the moment tensions rise. They rarely take sides, they rarely contribute to the drama, and interestingly enough, they're the ones who walk away from the gathering knowing everything that happened, because while the rest of the table was arguing, they were listening. The Queen of Hearts, the authority figure. This is the person who decides how things should be done. They have opinions on the right way to carve the turkey, the proper way to fold napkins, and the correct order for serving dessert. They may be loved, feared, or both. The Queen of Hearts enforces tradition with an iron will. The stuffing must be made from Grandma's exact recipe down to the last dash of seasoning. The Christmas cookies must be arranged in a specific order, and under no circumstances is anyone to alter the seat chart. Cross them, and you'll risk hearing their famous catchphrase, "Off with their heads!" or, in real life terms, the dreaded, "I'm just saying, things were done differently when I was growing up." Alice, the outsider. This is the guest who is trying to make sense of everything. Maybe it's the new in-law, the child who has just become old enough to notice family dynamics, or the friend who was invited at last minute. They're confused, but they're trying their best. Alice might be the one who unknowingly sits in Grandpa's sacred chair or asks an innocent question that sets off a 20-minute family debate. They might be startled when people suddenly start shouting over one another, not in anger, but simply because that's how this family communicates. Alice's are important though. They remind the rest of the family just how odd their traditions are. Their confusion can be a mirror, showing everyone that maybe, just maybe, some of these rules don't actually make any sense. And sometimes they're the ones who bring the fresh perspective, smoothing over old grudges or introducing new traditions of their own. But here's the real twist. These rules aren't set in stone. They shift over time. One year, you're Alice, blinking in confusion at the sheer chaos around you. The next year, the Dormouse, keeping your head down and trying to make it through the dessert without incident. Fast forward a few years later, and suddenly, you're the Mad Hatter, enthusiastically pouring drinks and making ridiculous toasts. And eventually, whether you like it or not, you might just wake up one day and realize you are the Queen of Hearts, scolding younger relatives for doing it wrong and insisting that things must just be so. So the real question is, who are you now? And who might you become at the next family gathering? Now let's get into the true wonderland of it all, the rules that aren't written down, yet everyone seems to follow. Everyone has them. They're not in any official rulebook, but much like Alice in Wonderland, you only realize you've broken one once someone gives you the look. You know, the one, the slight widening of the eyes, the raised eyebrow, the subtle shift in the room's energy that tells you you just committed an unspoken offense. Some classic examples, the seat hierarchy. Some people sit in the same exact seat every year. It's never been officially assigned, but heaven help the person who unknowingly sits in Grandpa's chair. The room goes quiet for half a second. Then there's an awkward pause. Maybe a gentle, "Oh, you might want to sit over there," instead, from a well-meaning relative. And then the realization, "Oh, I have made a grave mistake." Some families will openly announce their seat claims, while others rely on a slow but inevitable migration. Everyone just knows where they belong. But here's where things get interesting. What happens when someone doesn't show up? A beloved elder, an out-of-town cousin? Does the seat remain empty as a silent tribute? Or does someone dare to claim it? And then there's the most delicate seating dilemmas. Bringing a new guest, a significant other, a friend, a wild card. The first-time guest unknowingly upends the hierarchy, and suddenly the people are playing musical chairs in slow motion, subtly adjusting until balance is restored. The last slice dilemma. There's always one last piece of something, pie, turkey, bread rolls, that no one dares to take. Instead, an elaborate politeness ritual unfolds. "Oh, I couldn't possibly take the last piece." No, you should have it." "Well, only if no one else wants it." "Are you sure? I really don't mind." It goes on forever. People will literally cut the last slice in half, and then in quarters, just to avoid being the one who finishes it. In some families, this dance continues until someone finally declares, "Oh, for heaven's sake," and then takes it. In others, the last piece just sits there, a quiet monument to politeness, untouched, even as the dishes are being cleared. And in some families, the March hare swoops in and takes it without hesitation, just to watch the chaos unfold. The forbidden topics. You'd think people would just know to avoid politics, religion, or ancient family feuds, but no. The March hare is always waiting to drop a well-placed, "So what do you think about the election?" just as dessert is being served. And suddenly, the temperature of the room changes. The utensils pause mid-air, someone coughs, someone takes an extremely slow sip of their drink. The Queen of Hearts might step in to declare, "We are not discussing this at the table." But by then, it's too late. The tension has already seeped in. But the real forbidden topics? They're family-specific. The ones so deeply ingrained in history that no one dares to speak their name. The mysterious falling out between two aunts that no one explained. The great potato salad betrayal of 1997. The cousin who brought store-bought pie one time and was never trusted again. These are the true taboos. The topics that will never be written into a history book but will always linger beneath the surface. Unspoken, but understood. By some. The unspoken cleanup rules. Dinner is over and now comes the moment of reckoning. Who disappears and who stays to clean? In some families, everyone instinctively pitches in, moving in a well-practiced routine that looks like an elegant, time-honored dance. In others, a select few always end up washing the dishes while certain relatives mysteriously vanish, perhaps to the bathroom, perhaps to check on something real quick, never to be seen again until the last dish is dried. There's no official list of who does what, but somehow it always plays out the same way, and the moment someone breaks the pattern, say the designated dishwasher decides to sit back and relax. Chaos ensues. Glances are exchanged. Silent resentment brews. And maybe, just maybe, the Queen of Hearts finally snaps. Well, I guess some people don't think that they need help. These rules don't just dictate the flow of the meal. They hold the social fabric together. They maintain order in the midst of chaos, ensuring that no matter how bizarre, stressful, or downright absurd a family gathering becomes, it still functions. But what happens when someone decides to change the script? What if the seat hierarchy is ignored and people sit wherever they want? What if someone dares to take the last piece of pie without hesitation? What if the designated dishwasher says, "Not this year," and plops down on the couch instead? Do these unspoken rules hold firm, or does the entire structure collapse like a house of cards? Because here's the thing, sometimes traditions evolve. The March hare of one generation becomes the dormouse of the next. The Queen of Hearts who once dictated the rules might one day find themselves as Alice, sitting back and watching the chaos unfold with fresh eyes. So as you gather your own family's version of the Mad Hatter's Tea Party, ask yourself, are you following the unspoken rules? Or are you about to break one? Family conflict, the inevitable plot twist in any holiday gathering. Even the closest families have moments where things can get a little heated. And just like Alice at the tea party, sometimes you find yourself trapped in a conversation that makes absolutely no sense. Here's how Wonderland teaches us to navigate these moments. Rule number 1, stay curious, not combative. Instead of arguing, ask questions. Why does Uncle Joe believe that conspiracy theory? Why does Grandma really mean when she says things were simpler back in the day? Rule number 2, know when to walk away. Sometimes the best response is no response. Like Alice, you don't have to stay at the table if the nonsense becomes too much. Rule number 3, use humor to diffuse tension. A well-placed joke can shift the mood in an instant. Just be careful not to turn the Queen of Hearts into your next enemy. At the end of the day, family gatherings are unpredictable. They're full of love, frustration, and most importantly, stories we'll be telling for years. Yes, family gatherings can be chaotic, they can be absurd, and they can be utterly exhausting. But they are also where we can find connection. They remind us of who we are, where we come from, and sometimes how far we've come. So whether your next family meal feels like a well-rehearsed tradition or a full-on Wonderland adventure, take a deep breath, sip your tea, and remember, sometimes the best way to handle madness is simply to enjoy the ride. That's it for this episode of Wonderland Unlocked. If you've enjoyed today's trip through the Looking Glass, be sure to subscribe, share, and leave a review. Until next time, keep embracing the curious and unlocking the unexpected.